Welcome friends, welcome to Physics in 20 minutes. Today's class we are going to talk about work as it is defined in physics, kinetic energy, work kinetic energy theorem and power. So work done on a body is a scalar product of force acting on the body and its displacement in the direction of force. So two parts are very important, the force acting and its displacement in the direction of force. So here I have an example. I have a block mass m on which a force has been applied. As the force is being applied in this direction, the block suffers a displacement. Let the force be F and the displacement be S. And in this case, the work is simply defined as force into displacement. However, if the force works at an angle to the horizontal or to the displacement, then in that case force can be resolved into two components. You can see that F cos theta, which is largely a parallel component to the displacement. Therefore, I will mark it as by two parallel lines, F parallel, and then the other component is the perpendicular component, perpendicular to the displacement. This is F sin theta, I would mark it as F with a perpendicular sign. So if the force is acting at an angle, it can be resolved into two components, and then in this case the component which is in the direction of displacement, that component will be used for calculation. So in this case F cos theta into S will give you work, which is Fs cos theta. But Fs cos theta can be written as the dot product of two vectors, vector F dot vector S. So the work done is vector F dot vector S in this case. This expression, which is a scalar product of two vectors, gives me the general definition of the force as we use in physics. Work is a dot product or a scalar product of force vector and the displacement vector. Do remember, even though the force and displacement both are vector quantities, work itself is a scalar quantity. Work can be positive, it can be negative, it can be zero. So work will be positive if the force has a component in the direction of displacement. So do look at this diagram once again. My displacement is towards the right side. The force is acting at an angle to the displacement. It has a component F parallel which is in the direction of the displacement. So this is pointing to the right, this is also pointing to the right. So they both pointing in the same direction. And in this case the work done is going to be positive. However, had the force been working in perpendicular direction, then in that case force will not have a component in the direction of S, neither towards the forward direction nor towards the reverse direction. Since force does not have a component in the direction of displacement, the work done in this case is zero. Obviously, because the angle between the force and displacement is 90 degree and cos 90 is 0. You get negative work done if the component of force which is parallel to displacement is opposite to displacement. So you can see here displacement is pointing towards right and the component of the force parallel to displacement F cos theta is pointing to the left in opposite direction. So in this case the work done will be negative. The angle theta will be greater than 90 because it is measured from the positive x-axis from here, and therefore all cosine values of theta would be negative. Unit of work we are all familiar. So 1 joule is 1 Newton into 1 meter. So if 1 Newton of force produces a displacement of 1 meter, we say that the work done is 1 joule. Joule is MKS unit, CGS unit is erg, 1 joule is 10 power 7 erg. What will happen if there are more than one forces doing work? Addition of all the work done will apply. Example, if a body is falling in air, then gravity can do work, but simultaneously air resistance may also work. If a block is sliding on a table, then there might be a push or pull forces working on the block, but there might be friction simultaneously working on the block. So there can be more than one forces working on a body. In that case, the total work done by all forces is the algebraic sum of the work done by individual forces. Now here some works may be positive and some works may be negative, as we have discussed earlier, and some works may be zero as well. All this will come in this total. Going ahead, we define now kinetic energy. I have a body or a block of mass m and it is moving with the speed v. Remember, in case of kinetic energy, we are dealing with the speed of a body and we are not dealing with the direction of the motion or velocity vector. Then in that case, kinetic energy K is half mv square. This equation can be taken as definition of kinetic energy. That brings us to the very famous work kinetic energy theorem. Suppose if I have a block of mass m which is moving with the speed v1, you apply a force on it. As a result, the speed changes from v1 to v2 because there is an application of force. While this happens, let the displacement of the block be s. Then in that case, I can simply write the kinematical equation v2 square is equal to v1 square plus 2as. We are all familiar with the term. A is the acceleration. Remember, force is working, so there has to be an acceleration, and s is the displacement. So I can modify this to write 2as is equal to v2 square minus v1 square, which can be further written as as is equal to v2 square minus v1 square upon 2. Now both sides I can multiply by mass. So I would write MAS is equal to m v2 square minus m v1 square upon 2. But what is MA? MA is the force. So I can write F into S as mv2 square by 2 minus mv1 square by 2. But what is force into displacement? Work. Force and displacement here are in the same direction, and the product of the two will give me the work done. We have identified half mv square as kinetic energy. So half mv2 square upon 2 will be final kinetic energy K2. Half mv1 square upon 2 is initial kinetic energy K1, and therefore Fs, which is the work done, can be written as K2 minus K1. So the work done is nothing but change in kinetic energy. And always remember, when you are writing this change, it should be final kinetic energy minus initial and not the other way around. So be careful. So that brings us to the statement of the work kinetic energy theorem. Work done by the net or total force is equal to change in kinetic energy, and this statement is normally referred as work kinetic energy theorem. Work done by net force can be written as W total, which can be written as final Ke minus initial Ke, which is K2 minus K1, which is delta K. When W total is positive, the kinetic energy increases, speed increases. Remember, if this is positive, then K2 has to be greater than K1. If K2 has to be greater than K1, that means final velocity has to be greater than initial velocity. So when speed is increasing, that means the total work done is positive. So you can think about it, if a car is accelerating, its speed is increasing, that means the total work done, either total work done when it comes on the car, then it is the work done by friction, work done by gravity, work done by air resistance, work done by engine. But if the car is speeding up, then the total work done has to be positive. Similarly, when W total is negative, the kinetic energy decreases, speed decreases. That means in this case, K1 has to be greater than K2. So that means final kinetic energy is less, that shows speed is decreasing. Example, when you apply brakes to a car, its speed decreases and the total work done is negative. When W total is 0, then the kinetic energy stays the same, speed is unchanged. So if a car is moving at a constant speed, still engine is working, still friction is working, still air resistance is working, but the total work done is 0 because the speed remains unchanged, so is its kinetic energy. Remember, this theorem does not comment on velocity. The theorem comments only on the speed. If the car takes a turn at a constant speed, the kinetic energy remains unchanged and W total is still 0. Although the direction of velocity will change. So you have to be careful over here that work kinetic energy theorem does not talk about directions of motion. Now let us look at graphically. I have plotted a graph of force versus displacement. The displacement is x2 minus x1. A constant force is applied. So if I plot a graph of force versus displacement, then the force is marked here and it remains constant. Now work done is nothing but force into displacement. You multiply the two and you get the work. But in this graphical representation, force is this height. Okay, this height on the y-axis is force and displacement is this distance from here to here, which is x2 minus x1. So the product of the two, the product of force and displacement will give me this shaded area, the shaded area in pink color. So remember that on a force displacement diagram, the work done is area under the force curve. This line is typically referred as force curve, and this is the area which is bound by the force curve on one side, x-axis on the other side, and two limits, initial limits and the final limits. So this bound area is nothing but the work done on a force displacement diagram. So this is an easy way to calculate force. However, what will happen if the force is changing? So in the previous example, we saw that the force is constant. If the force is changing, so when the block is at x1, force is less, and when the block is x2, suppose force has increased. So in that case, the graph looks like this. So when the body is at x1, the force is less, and when the body reaches to x2, the force increases to f2x. This might be the curve by which the force must be changing as the block is moving. So the question is, how much is the work done in this case? The answer remains the same. The work done is the shaded area, the area bound by the force curve on one side, x-axis on other side, and two limits on the two sides. That is this pink colored shaded area. But this area is no longer a rectangle as it was in the previous case, if you can see. This area is uh, this area is difficult to calculate. So in order to calculate this area, so we divide this area into large number of thin vertical stripes and then calculate the area of each stripe. So for each stripe, your width is delta x. So we assume that height or the force value for that particular stripe is constant. So this entire area will be this f dx into delta dx. Once you have calculated the area of one stripe, then you can add all the areas together and get the total area. But you can see that this will introduce some errors. There are some corners where you are measuring extra areas, and there are some corners where you don't measure an area, you skip that. They may not equally compensate all the time. So what can you do to improve the accuracy of area calculation? Can anyone suggest?
Yeah, we can decrease the width of each rectangle, making it smaller and smaller.
Yes, that's correct. So you reduce the width of each rectangle, making them smaller and smaller. In an ideal case, you assume that width of each stripe tends to 0 and total number of stripes will tend to infinity. And in that case, instead of summing over the areas of all the stripes, you simply integrate from x1 to x2. So in that case, the work done can be obtained by integration x1 to x2 f of x dx. This is a time to introduce a spring force. We are familiar. So whenever you take a spring, this is a relaxed length, relaxed spring. But in the second case, the spring is stretched by an amount x. The moment you apply a stretching force, the spring will undergo tension, and if the spring is in equilibrium, then the force applied on the spring has to be equal to a constant k times the displacement x of the spring. The spring will pull back with an equal and opposite force inside. So spring force can be given as F is equal to k times x. In magnitude, k is a constant, and that is called spring constant, and it generally shows stiffness of the spring. If the k value is large, the spring is going to be a stiffer spring, while if the k value is small, it is going to be a little loose spring. This is normally called as Hooke's law. And if I plot a graph of f versus x, how would it look like?
A linear graph.
It's a linear graph. From where will it pass through in the graph?
Origin. Straight origin.
Origin. You can see that if x is 0, f is also 0. So work done by a spring force. So if I take a block tied to a spring and move it, say, from initially 0 to a displacement x, then and if I plot a graph of spring force versus displacement, then this graph is a straight line, okay, passing through the origin. Suppose the stretching is by an amount x, then the work done is the area between the force curve and the x-axis bound by the two limits. The two limits, one is at origin and other one is whatever is the maximum stretching that has occurred. So suppose maximum stretching is x, then this side is x. You can see that this area is nothing but a triangle. This becomes the base of the triangle and this becomes the height of the triangle. Work done by the spring will be given as this shaded area. Since it's a triangular area, it is half into base into height. So if you will get half kx square. So the work done by the spring is shaded triangular area, which is half kx square. Of course, you can obtain this by integration also. It's a variable force, force that changes with position. So you, in place of F, you write kx dx, you integrate it from 0 initial limit to final limit x. Once you run the integration, once you do the integration, you will get half kx square. Going ahead, what is the work done when the body is moving along a curved path? So the body is moving from P1 to P2 along a curved path, and force may be in an arbitrary direction. So how do you calculate work in this case? Very straightforward. First of all, you divide the path into small intervals. So divide the path into large number of small intervals. Take one such small interval, which is mostly be a straight line, and call it as dl, small length element, dl, vector dl. Now force is working at an angle to this dl, which angle is phi over here. Now this force can be resolved into two components. The one component of the force can be parallel to dl. You can see this component, which is called F parallel, which is also the adjacent component, so it is F cos phi. The other component of the force is perpendicular to the dl, which is perpendicular component. Now we have seen that work done by perpendicular component is 0, so this component will not do any work, only work done is by this component. So I can multiply this component and dl to get the work. If you want the total work done from P1 to P2, then you have to integrate this equation from P1 to P2. So work done is P1 to P2 F cos phi dl, but F cos phi is nothing but the parallel component, or it can also be written as vector F dot vector dl, and then integrated within the limits P1 to P2. Power we are all familiar, it is the rate at which the work is done. So you get the work divided by time in which that work is done, you get the power. Now when the intervals are longer, then you get what is called as average power. To get instantaneous power, you have to take the limit of delta t to 0, and when you do that, then you get instantaneous power, that is dw by dt. Unit of power will be joule per second or watt. Higher units are kilowatt, megawatts, etc. There is a one interesting unit of power is horsepower. So can anyone tell me 1 horsepower is how many watts?
746.
Yes, 1 horsepower has been standardized as 746 watt. We stop here. Thank you.